Furious, he clinches the Dragon Soul crystal tightly in his hand, his knuckles whitening from the sheer force. A chilling aura radiates from his body as he speaks in an icy, domineering tone. Eket, you actually dare to behave so arrogantly within my own spiritual domain. To be frank, I could destroy you this instant. As his words fall, heavy and absolute, he begins crushing the Dragon Soul crystal with every ounce of strength he can muster. Veins bulge along his arm as the pressure intensifies. In retaliation, the crystal erupts violently, releasing a torrent of immense soul energy that surges like a raging storm, struggling fiercely to escape his grasp. The power explodes outward in chaotic waves, growing stronger and more violent with every passing moment. The surrounding space trembles, as if on the verge of collapse. Yet, his grip remains unshaken, unyielding like iron. Even as the overwhelming forces collide relentlessly against him, threatening to tear everything apart, he shows no intention of releasing it. His expression remains cold and resolute. After a brief but intense struggle, the Dragon Soul crystal begins to lose its rich form, dissolving into a concentrated mass of radiant energy that slowly reshets itself before him, shimmering with mysterious power. Witnessing this astonishing scene, Antries is completely shocked, his pupils shrinking in disbelief. Realizing that the protagonist has truly accomplished the impossible, he blurts out in a shaken voice, "How can this be? You're merely level 72, yet you're capable of enduring the tyrannical soul force of the Dragon Soul crystal." At the same time, after fully taking in the energy emitted by the crystal, Linmoe slowly opens his eyes. A faint glow lingers within them as if something profound has taken root deep within his soul. Inspecting himself from within, sensing every fluctuation in his power, he murmurs with puzzlement, his brows slightly furrowed. "Why does it feel like my soul power hasn't increased at all?" Upon hearing this, Antries grows slightly annoyed, his expression turning solemn and authoritative as he replies, "The law energy contained within a 9-coloured Dragon Soul crystal is far too immense. What you need is accumulation. What you need is understanding. Only then will you be able to slowly absorb and refine it." Hearing this explanation, the protagonist pauses briefly, then nods with calm acceptance, and responds, "Understood. Going step by step is fine." At that moment, Antries raises his massive claw, and with a simple motion, space itself distorts as a dark, swirling portal forms, humming with ancient power. Then, without any hesitation, he forcefully shoves him toward it and says in a slightly weary tone, "That's enough. You already gain what you came for. Return to the ancient trial grounds. I'm exhausted." As he is thrust into the portal, the rushing wind howls past him. He instinctively calls out Antries' name, but the instant he passes through, his voice is cut off as his figure vanishes without a trace, swallowed completely by the shifting void of the portal. Once he is gone, Antries remains where he stands, his massive figure slowly relaxing. He lowers his voice, speaking softly into the vast emptiness, yet every word carries an immense, lingering weight. "Old man, why did you choose me to inherit everything? Was there truly no one else you favoured?" His tone turns bitter as memories resurface. "It has been tens of thousands of years. Even if you entrusted me with the inheritance Dragon Pearl, I still cannot forgive you so easily. You were never a good father, and I was never a dutiful son." Suddenly, his demeanour shifts violently. The calm vanishes, replaced by unrestrained fury. His eyes blaze as he raises his head and lets out a deafening roar that echoes across the entire domain. The surrounding space trembles under his rage as he continues with intense, unyielding hatred. "When I break free, I will charge into the ancestral land. Whatever you refuse to give me, I will reclaim it with my own hands." His voice grows even more savage. "I will slaughter until the heavens are overturned, until the stars are drenched in blood. Even if I must flood the ancestral land with dragon blood, I will not hesitate." Shortly after, the scene shifts, transitioning back to the protagonist's position. Face ripples faintly as he reappears, having already arrived through teleportation. He now stands within a vast mountainous region where jagged peaks stretch endlessly into the distance. Above him, dark clouds churn as lightning flashes and crackles across the sky without pause, illuminating the land in brief, island bursts. The moment he appears, he does not move recklessly. Instead, he carefully examines his surroundings, his gaze sharp and observant. Feeling the residual disturbance in the air, he says thoughtfully, "Antries' rage has actually influenced the entire ancient trial ground." He pauses, narrowing his eyes slightly. What exactly has he experienced? And what kind of connection does he have with that divine dragon? Then, as if dismissing the thought for now, a faint smile forms on his lips. His expression becomes calm once more as he continues, "Forget it. If he wants to tell me, he will say it himself." His tone softens slightly. Right now, he likely just wants some solitude. Looking forward, his attention shifts to the battlefield ahead. In the distance, he notices a vast group of windflower-type creatures drifting and swaying. Their numbers are immense, filling the landscape like a living storm, with both large and small ones scattered throughout the area. Upon seeing them, his eyes sharpen with focus as he says, "As for me, I'll just hunt a few monsters and gain some experience first." The instant the wind flowers sense his presence, their gentle appearance vanishes. They react immediately, emitting sharp, whistling sounds as they rush toward him from all directions at astonishing speed. In mere moments, they close the distance, forming a dense encirclement around him, cutting off every possible escape. Seeing himself surrounded, the protagonist remains completely composed. Without hesitation, he swiftly raises his hand and channels his power. Dark energy gathers as he summons his skeletal army. In an instant, the ground trembles as countless skeleton warriors emerge, filling the entire area and forming a formidable undead legion. Acting upon a silent command, the skeletal army surges forward like an unstoppable tide. Their hollow eyes burn with eerie light as they charge at full speed, wielding massive swords and heavy axes. With coordinated precision, they launch a relentless assault on the approaching wind flowers. The moment they reach their targets, the skeleton warriors unleash fierce, explosive attacks. Blades and axes cut through the air with tremendous force. However, as soon as their weapons strike the winged creatures, an unexpected result occurs. The monsters are not torn apart, but instead are instantly knocked spinning high into the air, their bodies twisting violently as if caught in the powerful gust, defying the expected outcome. Rotating rapidly, the wind flowers intensify their assault as they unleash their own wind-attributed counter-strikes. The violent spinning compress surrounding air into deadly projectiles. One attack in particular, entirely formed from concentrated energy, shot forward with piercing force and went straight through a skeleton warrior's chest, eliminating it instantly. After witnessing the destruction of one of his skeleton warriors and realizing just how powerful these creatures were, his expression turned more serious. With a focused gaze, he stated, "These creatures possess extremely high stats. Not only are my berserk attacks unable to penetrate their defenses, but they are also capable of easily injuring my skeleton berserkers." Right at that moment, a massive windflower, the world-class boss, materialized before him. Its enormous form dominated the battlefield. It was level 86 with strength at 100, agility at 800, spirit at 800, and constitution at 1500. Its abilities included pollen explosion, petal burst, and wind flower blood moon. Its special characteristics were dragon ferocious armor, a 90% reduction to wind-type damage, and a 50% reduction to physical damage. The wind entity continued its intense rotation, gathering force as it readied its next defensive move. After reviewing its attributes, the protagonist quietly spoke to himself, "So it carries the whirlwind armor property. That explains why I am unable to break through its defense." At that very moment, the wind creature unleashed a widespread barrage of wind element attacks in all directions. Countless compressed wind blades shot outward at incredible velocity, cutting through everything in their path. Any skeleton warriors caught within the attack were instantly torn apart and destroyed. Within a very short period, a significant portion of his skeleton army was completely eradicated. Observing their destruction, he remained composed and said, "In that case, I'll switch tactics." Without wasting any time, he proceeded to summon the Skeleton King. Instantly, all remaining skeleton warriors broke apart into streams of elemental energy, flowing together toward a single location. Within moments, the gathered energy condensed and formed the Skeleton King. As soon as it fully manifested, he immediately gave the command to attack. Upon receiving the order, the Skeleton King advanced forward, firmly holding its sword while taking on a ready combat posture. It started charging its god-slaying skill, and the instant the ability was fully prepared, it released it directly toward the wind monsters. The Skeleton King initiated relentless assaults, its towering frame surging forward with unstoppable momentum, unleashing divine slaying strikes that tore straight through every lesser wind monster blocking its path. Each swing of its weapon carved through the air like a judgment from the underworld, scattering broken winds and shattered forms in its wake. Yet the moment their bodies were severed, a strange phenomenon occurred. Bright red flower petals suddenly erupted from inside them, bursting out as if they had been hidden within their very cores. Petals scattered violently in every direction, carried by the turbulent wind of the battlefield. A huge mass of these petals rapidly accumulated throughout the battlefield. Every wind monster destroyed by the Skeleton King released even more of these unnatural crimson petals, causing the air itself to grow denser and more chaotic with their presence. Soon all of them began drifting together toward the Skeleton King as if guided by an unseen force. The petals converged from every direction, forming swirling currents in the air, gradually enclosing it from all sides until it was fully surrounded in a tightening crimson storm. The instant the encirclement was complete, all the petals detonated at the same time without warning. Each single petal carried explosive force, and when combined, the resulting chain reaction produced devastating blasts that shook the entire battlefield. Witnessing this, the protagonist was stunned and shouted, "Those petals, they can actually explode." When the shockwave finally faded and the dust began to settle, the skeleton king slowly stepped out from the collapsing cloud. However, its once flawless skeletal body was now covered in deep cracks, and fragments of bone were breaking away and falling to the ground one after another. Seeing it wounded at last, he cried out in disbelief, "Even the skeleton king is injured." The explosive power of those petals is terrifying. At that very moment, the lit general positioned behind a combi raised its ancient staff into the air and activated this legion healing technique. Dark green runes lit up across the battlefield as an eerie restorative energy began to spread outward. As the restorative energy expanded, it rapidly mended the skeleton king's injuries, knitting fractured bone back together and stabilizing its collapsing structure. In only moments, every crack was sealed and it was completely restored, returning to its original terrifying condition. The skeleton king rose again into a battle stance as if nothing had happened. However, immediately after, without giving any time to recover, wine monsters surged in from every direction like a tidal wave and began relentlessly striking it with sharp wind-slash attacks. In response, the skeleton king triggered absolute defense, creating a dense barrier of dark energy to protect itself from the incoming barrage. Watching this, the protagonist said, "The skeleton king has activated absolute defense and suppressed them. Now is our opportunity." The moment he finished speaking, he activated the undead gaze ability, and the surrounding space trembled violently as ancient energy responded to his command. Instantly, a towering structure formed from condensed undead energy rose from the ground as if something massive was being summoned from beneath the battlefield itself. Its massive door slowly opened with a deep, echoing groan that seemed to shake the soul, and from within, a gigantic eye emerged, suspended in darkness and radiating overwhelming pressure. But I locked onto the battlefield and released streams of soul flame attacks, sweeping across all the wind monsters ahead in wide destructive arcs. The flames moved like living judgment, burning not flesh but the very essence of existence. Every wind monster touched by the soul flames was instantly engulfed and destroyed, their forms disintegrating into ash-like fragments. Yet even in death, the red flower petals continued to emerge from their bodies, completely unaffected by the burning soul fire, as if they existed beyond physical destruction. A large number of monsters had already fallen, and as their bodies vanished into nothingness, even more crimson petals floated upward into the air, increasing in both density and intensity until the battlefield looked like a storm of red ash. As these petals rose higher and higher, they began releasing a deep crimson energy throughout the atmosphere, slowly spreading like a spreading curse across the sky itself. Looking up at the sky, the protagonist suddenly felt a growing sense of alarm and shouted, "That is Windflower Blood Moon." At that exact moment, the entire sky had already begun to shift, turning completely red as if reality itself was being rewritten. Even the moon itself had transformed, becoming entirely crimson and radiating an ominous glow. The Kansas kettles triggered the Windflower Blood Moon technique, unleashing a massive surge of red energy that spread across the entire region, engulfing everything in sight and transforming the battlefield into a terrifying blood-red domain where normal laws of battle no longer seemed to apply.